and let us all do we can to build a better future. And this has to deal with Biden's infrastructure bill. And remember those wonderful, fantastic senators, those 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats?
No, 7 Republicans and 3 Democrats.
Or wait, no, I'm sorry. We got it wrong again. It's one big corporate party.
And you ain't, right.
And you ain't in it. Now, some of them are calling themselves Republicans, and some of them are calling them Democrats, but they're corporate prostitutes.
But they're all full of shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see, we have fun on the show. It's a Friday show, everyone. See, you're having fun. So let's play this video from Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, YouTube, and on Odyssey. He's doing a lot of great stuff. Let's play this first video. Hang on, folks. It's going to get fun.
Not exactly a resounding conclusion to these negotiations, but what are they talking about here? What is this framework? And as always with this negotiation, how are they going to pay for it?
Make sure we don't give the American people anything.
Well, Willie, I talked to Susan Collins about this late yesterday, and she made a point of warning me not to overstate where they are on this. So I appreciate the caveat at the top here. They still, this group of 10 senators, 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, know they have to sell what they've come up with, not just to their respective caucuses, but also to the White House if they're going to get anywhere. And I think that's some of the hesitation here. What I can tell you is in this plan is it gets up above $1 trillion in total spending, particularly when you stretch it out over the 8-year mark.
That's kind
of a deal that it was worked out with the Biden administration, whether it was going to be 5 years or 8 years. This bill can be stretched out to 8. It deals with just physical infrastructure, so the elements about the care economy that the White House had wanted to see in the jobs plan get all the way through Congress is not included in this. And the way that the group tried to come up with to pay for it involves a mix of things like the unspent COVID relief money that was talked about in the Shelley Moore
Can you pause for 1 second?
Why is it unspent?
Can we pause? Okay, first thing, again, seriously, if you're going to be on a major network, I don't care. Like, wipe down your camera gear. And what did he do where that thing's like all blurry like that?
He's all in focus, and it's like he's got Vaseline. I really wonder if he forgot he may have done something on another show anonymously, or he was protecting his identity.
It may be. I don't know. Hold on, FaZe. I need your comment on this real quick. What do you think happened to his camera lens?
I don't know. I think it may be compression from being called.
Really?
Possibly. If this was like a Zoom call, maybe it was compressed.
Well, see, because I don't have that great stuff at my place, and I'm able to at least get a picture. I mean, it's not great, but I don't look like I'm part of the witness protection program or something like that.
He probably spent all the money on the suit.
No, yeah, probably on the suit. Probably on the suit. Okay, thank you, FaZe, for your analysis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, FaZe. All right, let's play the rest of the video.
To do some creative things with taxes, and I think this is where this may get hung up with the administration. For example, they index the gas tax to inflation. They say this is not a tax increase. Well, if there is inflation and the gas tax goes up, the tax will go up, but these members can say, we didn't raise it, we simply indexed it to inflation. Will that fly with the White House? I have no idea. But I can tell you that it's already not flying with progressive Democrats. Ron Wyden, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, was panning this plan before it was even released. It still isn't released in its entirety. He basically said, this ain't it. So there are Democrats who are still itching to go forward with a much bigger plan here. But the fact that this is bipartisan, that it does have the buy-in of at least these 5 Republican senators, gives, I think, hope to those who want a bipartisan deal, including the President of the United States. The White House said they're looking this over and they have questions, Willie. So we'll see to what degree the bipartisan group can answer those questions and whether this moment in the sun for them continues and they continue to negotiate through next week, or if the White House or another.
The bipartisan group, I would identify them as the bipartisan circle jerk.
You know what? And I'm going to acknowledge this YouTube super chat from Roger Meadows. Corporate prostitutes. Again, yeah, that's what they are. They're all collectively are corporate prostitutes. And when you see Manchin and Sinema there, to diehard vote blue no matter who crowd, you know that they're going to compromise with the 5 Republicans there. I look at that entire board. Can we actually pull up that team right there? Can we actually pull
Sinema will curtsy after she does it.
Right. So again, this video is only going to be 17 seconds, but let's actually keep that image right there. Let's actually have some democracy in this little segment. Type 1 if you have confidence in these senators to do the right thing for the American people as we are struggling day in, day out, as 30 to 40 million are at risk of being evicted from their homes. Type 1 if you have confidence in these wonderful politicians. Type 2 if you don't. And again, if you want to add in an answer there as well, but what you really think about these politicians, please feel free. There's no such thing as incorrect answer. And again, look, 30, 40 million Americans are at risk of being evicted from their homes. You got a lot of small businesses being shut down. COVID-19 is still a real thing, folks. We're still stuck in regime change wars. Climate change is a real threat. Our infrastructure is crumbling apart. And remember, that bridge over the Memphis River, it was a civilian that found that huge crack in the bridge. It wasn't the inspectors. We haven't updated our infrastructure in decades. We don't have Medicare for all. We don't have student debt forgiveness. We don't have medical debt forgiveness. We don't have affordable education. We are right now a country that is struggling, and our politicians are thinking that everything's okay because they have a mindset that was, again, decades old. And to the new blood that is in there, they don't have the will or maybe the courage or the spine to even fight for us anymore. It's one big club. And you ain't in it. Jerry, I know you wanted to add in something.
Well, I got to wonder, that when they mentioned the unspent COVID funds, is that the extra $600 that Biden took out of everybody's secondary relief checks earlier this year? When it went from, we're only going to pay you, what was it? No, the checks were $1,400 because...
Well, okay.
No,
$1,200
checks because Trump had given...
Well, okay, so here's the whole thing with the stimulus checks, just to be
stimulus
very clear.
checks, yeah.
So the very first stimulus check that we got from Trump was $1,200.
Right.
And originally, so leading up to Biden, originally Trump wanted to do an additional $1,200 stimulus check, but that was stopped by Nancy.
Yeah. And Nancy said she was going to fight for more because she wanted to stop Trump before the election.
Yeah, she wanted to hurt Trump.
Right.
But that never happened. So we got the $600 stimulus check, and mind you, right after it was made available, Donald Trump made a press conference saying that he wanted it to be $2,000 and $600 was not enough.
Right.
So again, whether or not Trump would have done a continuous UBI or stimulus check right after the first one in March, it's up in the air. Trump is a known liar, but again,
Biden is too when he campaigned on $2,000 stimulus checks, and then we got $1,400 because of the $600. So what I'm proposing is that unspent COVID relief. Maybe they got that from the $2,000 checks that were promised, but of which they only delivered the $1,400.
Right.
That was my point.
So yeah,
for what it's worth.
So the thing is, and again, who knows what that stimulus check would have been? I mean, whether or not Trump would have done it or not, it would have been interesting to see.
And you talk about infrastructure. You're talking about that bridge. Drive under any underpass here in Chicago underneath the L platforms. It's like held together with duct tape and metal plates. Our bridges in Chicago are literally crumbling. I drive under them, and I've taken videos and shared them on social media. I'm like, why hasn't anybody fixed these things? They look like they're going to collapse.
Or either that when we got hit with that polar vortex when Lakeshore Drive was shut down because it got so cold, like a key beam fell off or cracked off. Yeah. And listen, for those of you who haven't driven on Lakeshore Drive, it's a beautiful drive, but if one of those beams ever falls loose or if it falls apart, it's going to be a disaster, the likes of which this city hasn't seen in quite some time. So let's play this final video again. There's that fantastic roster. It's only 17 seconds, but let's end this segment because, again, folks, these are the people that are supposed to, quote-unquote, help us, but they're not.
The Hall of Shame.
Progressive Democrats come forward and say, this isn't going to cut the mustard. We've got to find something else.
Well, I'll tell you what, $1.2 trillion ain't nothing. And the fact that people suggest that it's too small of a sum for infrastructure, I guess that tells you exactly where we are right now.
Progressive Democrats
come. So let's go ahead and pause that.
The congressional supervillain lineup.
Yeah, so here's something that we need to take away from this. However this infrastructure bill is going to get passed, know this, that the original $2.3 trillion is going to be watered down. Now, unless the Biden administration decides to go it alone, I'll be surprised if that happens. But this infrastructure bill will, again, be a sign of just how the 2022 midterms will play out. The Democrats haven't followed through with any of their campaign promises. The GOP, they're playing out their traditional playbook by being obstructionists. That's it. And the thing is, we know what they're going to do. We know what they're going to say. We know what their policies are going to be. And 2022 will be a sign of how 2024 will play out because there's talk about Trump running again for re-election. Maybe he runs again. Maybe he doesn't. But the point is that this two-party system that we are seeing, they're not fighting for us. This two-party system that's ruling over us, they don't care. The Democrats say that they might suck and then point to the Republican Party and say that they suck even worse. But here's a sad fact. The American voter is not the #1 constituent. The American voter is left alone. We have been left in the wilderness. They're not going to help us, whether it's someone who's a Democrat or a Republican. So whether you are a diehard red team or blue team, guess what? The #1 constituent to these politicians are big banks corporations, Wall Street executives, the top 1%. You will never have a seat at the table. So until the American people step up and call for a general strike to actually hold these politicians accountable and actually for us to actually have a real democracy, nothing will fundamentally change, because the abuse that we are taking is downright shocking. You know, we have people in who are our viewing audience overseas who ask, how come you guys don't fight for single-payer health care? It's a nightmare. I've never heard of medical bankruptcy.
We have been fighting for years and years and years. And without our elected representatives actually representing us, these are the corporate states of America, not the USA, the CSA.
Yes. And again, these politicians, in all reality, at the bare minimum, that infrastructure bill needs to be at $10 trillion, not $2.3 trillion. We haven't invested in our country in for so long. And again, Jerry, you brought up again our crumbling infrastructure here in Chicago. It's a very real thing. When you look underneath these bridges and if you live in the city or know anyone that lives in the city, they'll tell you how creepy it is to drive underneath those bridges and how very unstable it looks.
But one of the stories we're covering tonight on Chicago Corner is the millions of dollars that's going to be spent on completely replacing the State Lake Station, which is right down by the Chicago Theater in the middle of the Loop, to beautify things. That's where the money's going to go, to tear down the historical station and build something new and shiny, while all the bridges that the trains are running across all over the rest of the city are literally on the precipice of collapsing. That's where the federal, and I was arguing with somebody on Facebook. I said, you know, couldn't our money go better places than beautifying, you know, the train station for superficial reasons? And she's, well, you don't understand how it works. That's federal money. I'm like, okay, so why doesn't the federal money go to fixing the infrastructure on the bridges that are about to collapse or everywhere else?
Yeah, and just one more thing, too, before we end this segment. I urge our viewing audience, I mean, because we kind of got a little bit off track, but it's fine. Check out Chicago's Not Broke. It's written by Tom Trescher. It's a fantastic read. I can't promote it enough. Again, we are not Chicago's Not Broke does not sponsor Hard Lens Media or anything with us, but I've read that book numerous times. It's about the TIF funds and why Chicago actually does have money, but our politicians don't use it. They use it to make the downtown area look beautiful. It's like one big slush fund for them to use. So there we go.
For the mayors, the mayors who are, and there's no accountability. There's no transparency either.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to give the final word to Roger Meadows. Tip $2. They should have started with $20 trillion. That should the infrastructure bill should be. There we go, $20 trillion. And I'm going to give Roger Meadows the final word on that one. So with that being said, Jerry, thank you so much for being my co-host, man. Again, Chicago Corner is really doing some fantastic work. Be sure to subscribe to that channel. We're planning on doing a lot with Chicago Corner as we continue to grow. We got a lot of major announcements for this summer. It's pretty exciting because you know the inside baseball. And if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll also know the inside information as well about what we are doing and how this summer is going to be very big for 99 Perspectives and Hard Lens Media and Chicago Corner and all the rest of the projects we're working on. I also want to acknowledge our Odyssey chat as well. Let's go ahead and bring that up. 0.01 library tokens from our good friend of the show, the Whitefell DM. Support Hard Lens Media by joining the elite crew traveling abroad, the old Odyssey, traveling